It was a quiet Wednesday afternoon in Maplewood, a peaceful suburban neighborhood where nothing ever happened until Mrs. Edith Callahan dialed 911 in a state of distress. "This is an emergency," she insisted to the dispatcher. "My internet is gone. That man next door, he changed the password. I know he did it on purpose." The man next door was Andre Mitchell, a 32-year-old software engineer who had moved in 6 months ago. A quiet, polite man, but to Edith, he was a mystery. She had been using his unprotected Wi-Fi for weeks, until today. When Officer Jessica Reed arrived, she found Edith standing on her porch, arms crossed, glaring at Andre's house. "He's up to something," Edith whispered as the officer knocked on Andre's door. Andre opened it, confused. "Is there a problem, officer?" Jessica sighed, already regretting this call. "Your neighbor says you changed your Wi-Fi password." Andre raised an eyebrow. Yeah. It's my Wi-Fi." Edith huffed. "He doesn't need to change it. What does he have to hide?" Jessica turned to her. "Ma'am, this is not a police matter." Edith's eyes narrowed. "Then what is it?" "Because I have a feeling something isn't right." Andre exhaled, shaking his head. But something about the way Edith stared at him sent a strange chill down his spine. It was as if she knew something. And then, with a sly smile, she said, "I hope you like secrets, Mr. Mitchell." "Because I have one too." Andre stiffened. He had planned to brush off this ridiculous situation, but there was something unsettling about Edith's smirk. "Excuse me," he said, narrowing his eyes. Edith clasped her hands together, tilting her head. "Oh, don't mind me, dear. I'm just an old woman with a lot of free time. I sit on this porch all day. I see things." Officer Reed sighed. "Ma'am, this isn't a police matter. Please don't call 911 over Wi-Fi issues again." She turned to Andre. "Sorry about this, sir." Andre forced a smile. "No problem." But as the officer walked back to her car, Edith's eyes never left Andre's face. "Good night, Mr. Mitchell," she said sweetly. "Sleep well." 2 nights later. Andre almost forgot about the bizarre interaction until strange things started happening. At first, it was small. His trash can was knocked over one morning, though he chalked it up to raccoons. Then, his mail started going missing. One evening, as he was locking up for the night, he noticed something else. His router had been reset. Andre stared at it. He was sure he had set a new, complex password after the whole incident with Edith. But now, it was back to the default settings. Someone had accessed it. Heart pounding, he checked his Wi-Fi logs. A device had connected to his network last night at 3:14 a.m. The name was cryptic, Mrs. E_observer. Andre's stomach dropped. A rustling sound came from outside. He turned toward the window. There, on her porch, rocking slowly in her chair, was Edith. She smiled. And waved. Andre's skin prickled. He knew paranoia was creeping in, but something about the old woman unsettled him. Deciding he had enough, he grabbed his jacket and stepped outside. "Evening, Mr. Mitchell," Edith said cheerfully, rocking in her chair. Andre forced a smile. "Evening. You wouldn't happen to know anything about my Wi-Fi being tampered with, would you?" Her smile widened. "Oh, dear. Are you having connection issues?" Andre clenched his jaw. "You were on my network last night. I saw the device name." Edith chuckled. "Oh, sweetheart, You should know better than to trust technology. It sees what it wants to see. Andre's patience snapped. Look, I don't know what your deal is, but... A sudden sound cut him off. Click. Edith had lifted an old flip phone and pressed a button. Behind Andre, his own phone vibrated in his pocket. He pulled it out. Unknown number, you shouldn't have changed the password. A chill ran down his spine. How? He started, but Edith was already standing up, stretching as if preparing for bed. Good night, dear, she said softly. See you soon. She turned and walked inside, closing the door behind her. Andre stared at his phone, his pulse racing. This wasn't just about Wi-Fi anymore. Something was very, very wrong. Andre locked his doors that night. He wasn't usually the paranoid type, but Edith's behavior was getting under his skin. The cryptic text, the way she seemed to know things she shouldn't, it was starting to feel personal. Lying in bed, he stared at his phone. He could still see the message. You shouldn't have changed the password. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. Should he reply? Should he block the number? Or call the police? Before he could decide, his phone buzzed again. New message, check your camera feed. Andre's blood ran cold. Slowly, he sat up and opened his home security app. He had a motion-activated camera facing his front porch. The feed loaded, the image grainy in the darkness. At first, there was nothing. Just his quiet street, dimly lit by a street lamp. Then, movement. The rocking chair on Edith's porch was moving. Rocking. But Edith wasn't there. Andre's breath caught. He squinted at the screen. Was it the wind? No, the chair was moving in a steady rhythm, as if someone unseen was sitting in it. Then, as he watched, something even stranger happened. The chair stopped. And then, it slowly turned to face his house. Andre's hands went clammy. He wasn't imagining this. His phone buzzed again. New message, you're watching, aren't you? He nearly dropped the phone. His eyes darted to his window, then back to the screen. The camera still showed the porch. Empty. Silent. Waiting. Andre forced himself to breathe. This was a game. It had to be. Edith was messing with him. But then... The camera feed glitched. For half a second, the screen went black. When the image returned, the chair was empty. And standing on his porch was Edith. Staring directly into the camera. Not smiling. Not moving. Just watching. Andre's chest tightened. His phone buzzed one last time. New message, you should have left the Wi-Fi alone. And then, his screen went dark. Andre's breath came in short, panicked bursts. His phone was dead, not just powered off, but completely unresponsive. This wasn't just an old woman being nosy. This was something else. Something wrong. Forcing himself to move, he grabbed his laptop. No way was he going to sleep after that. He needed answers. He connected to his Wi-Fi, still running, but now with an extra device showing in the network logs. Mrs. E_observer, active. Andre's hands clenched into fists. He wasn't imagining it. Someone, Edith, was on his network. Anger flared in his chest. Enough was enough. He opened a network monitoring tool, trying to trace her connection. If she had hacked into his system, he'd find out how. But as he ran the command, the results sent ice down his spine. Device location, 37.7749 degrees north, 122.4194 degrees west. That wasn't Edith's house. It was inside his house. A noise came from the hallway. A slow, deliberate creak. Andre's pulse hammered in his ears. He grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and stepped toward the door. Another creak. Closer this time. He reached for the doorknob. And his laptop screen glitched. The network log vanished. The screen filled with static. Then, for a brief second, a new message appeared. "You're not alone." The bedroom light flickered. And then, a soft, rasping chuckle came from just outside his door. Andre's grip on the lamp tightened. Whatever was happening, whatever Edith was, this wasn't just about Wi-Fi anymore. This was something much worse. Andre's breath caught in his throat. The chuckle outside his door was quiet, almost amused. He wasn't alone. Slowly, he reached for his phone again. Still dead. No use. His eyes darted to the window. Could he climb out? Run? Another sound. Tap. 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 Like fingernails against wood. Andre's fingers tightened around the lamp. He forced himself forward and yanked the door open. Nothing. The hallway was empty. Dark. Silent. His heart pounded. He stepped out cautiously, scanning the shadows. The house felt wrong, like something unseen was watching him. Then he saw it. His Wi-Fi router. It was blinking erratically, the indicator lights flashing in a pattern that didn't make sense. Almost like Morse code. A chill ran through him. He had no idea how to read Morse, but the message was repeating over and over. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate. His laptop screen flickered again. He ran back to it. A text document had opened on its own. Words were appearing, letter by letter, as if someone was typing. "Do you want to know the truth?" Andre swallowed hard. His hands trembled over the keyboard. He typed back, "Who are you?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then, more words appeared. "Mrs. Callahan." But you already knew that. Andre's stomach turned. Edith. Before he could react, the typing continued. "You took something from me. Now I'm taking something from you." A sharp chill filled the room. The air felt heavy, electric. The light above flickered. And then, his front door slammed open. Andre spun around. And standing there, perfectly still, was Edith. Her eyes gleamed in the dim light. Her lips curled into a smile. Finally, she whispered. Andre's grip tightened on the lamp as he stared at Edith, standing motionless in his doorway. Her smile was too wide. Her eyes, dark and gleaming, didn't blink. Finally, she whispered again, stepping inside. Andre took a step back. "What do you want?" His voice was steady, but his pulse was racing. Edith cocked her head. "I told you, dear. You took something from me. Now I'm taking something from you." Andre's mind reeled. What the hell was she talking about? "I don't even know you," he snapped. "I changed my damn Wi-Fi password, that's all." Edith's smile faltered, just for a second. And then, she laughed. "Oh, Andre," she said, shaking her head. "You really think this is about Wi-Fi?" The lights flickered. The laptop screen behind him glitched violently, distorting into static. His router continued to flash its bizarre, Morse code-like signal. And then, the temperature dropped. Andre saw his own breath. A heavy weight pressed down on his chest. The house felt wrong, like the air itself was bending around him. Edith took another step closer. "You moved into my house," she whispered. Andre's blood ran cold. "What?" Edith's smile stretched wider. "Oh, dear. Didn't you know?" The router flashed again, and Andre's laptop screen changed. A new image appeared. A photo of his house. But it wasn't from today. The picture was old, black and white. The house looked newer, untouched by time. And standing on the porch was a much younger Edith. And beside her, a man. A black man. His face was shadowed, but there was something eerily familiar about him. Andre's stomach twisted. "Who is that?" Edith's expression darkened. "My husband," she murmured. "Before they took him away." The lights went out. The router shut down. And in the pitch darkness, Edith's voice came again, soft, but filled with rage. "You should have left the password alone." Darkness swallowed the room. The air was thick, pressing against Andre's chest like an unseen weight. Somewhere in the black void, Edith whispered, her voice slithering through the silence. "You don't belong here." Andre's pulse thundered in his ears. His fingers fumbled for his phone, still dead. The lamp, useless. The only light came from the laptop screen, which flickered violently, glitching between distorted text and static-covered images. Then, something changed. The screen cleared. And a video file began playing. Andre's breath hitched. It was grainy security footage. Black and white. A date stamp in the corner, 1963. The video showed the front of his house, back when it was still Edith's house. The same porch. The same rocking chair. And standing on that porch, her husband. The man in the old photograph. The footage played in eerie silence as he kissed Edith goodbye and stepped off the porch. He walked down the street, past a line of houses. Then, headlights. A car sped into frame. Brakes screeched. The man turned, too late. The car hit him. Hard. His body crumpled. But the car didn't stop. It slowed for only a second, just enough for the driver's face to be visible. Andre's heart stopped. The driver looked exactly like him. A distorted whisper crawled from the laptop speakers. "Now you see." Andre staggered back, his mind spiraling. No. No, that's not possible. The static on the screen crackled, shifting into text. History repeats itself. And then, the screen glitched again. Now, it was showing live security footage. Of his front porch. And sitting in the rocking chair was the man from the video. His lifeless eyes stared directly at the camera. Then, he stood up. A sharp, deafening knock rattled Andre's front door. Bang. 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 Edith's whisper slid through the darkness behind him. "It's time for you to pay, Andre." Bang. 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 The knocks shook the door like a hammer striking wood. Andre couldn't move. His mind was stuck on the impossible, the video, the man outside, the face that looked just like his own. "It's time for you to pay, Andre." Edith's voice was closer now. right behind him. Andre spun around. She was gone. Only empty darkness remained. The only sound was his own ragged breathing. Bang. 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 His front door shuddered. Andre's legs finally obeyed. He stumbled backward, grabbing a chair as a makeshift weapon. His laptop screen flickered violently, flashing text, images, numbers he didn't understand. The router's lights pulsed in erratic patterns. And then, the Wi-Fi name changed. Andre's stomach twisted as the new network name popped up on his screen. Let him in. No. No, no, no. Bang. The door swung open. A wave of icy air rushed in, sending chills up Andre's spine. His instincts screamed at him to run, but his body refused. Because he saw him. Standing in the doorway. Tall. Still. The man from the video. His face, Andre's face, but older, worn, haunted. His clothes were tattered, soaked in shadows. His eyes, lifeless, empty, black voids. He lifted one hand and pointed at Andre. Andre's breath caught. His vision blurred. The room spun. And then, the Wi-Fi name changed again. It's your turn. The lights exploded. A deafening screech ripped through the house. And everything went black. Silence. Andre's eyes flickered open. Darkness surrounded him. His ears were ringing, his body cold against the wooden floor. For a moment, he didn't know where he was. Then, it all came rushing back. The video. The knocking. The man at the door. Andre sucked in a shaky breath and pushed himself up. His apartment was pitch black, the power was gone. The air was thick, like something heavy had seeped into the walls. And then, a slow, rhythmic creak. The sound sent a violent shiver down his spine. The rocking chair. It was moving. Andre's fingers fumbled for his phone, still dead. He turned toward the door. It was wide open. Cold night air whispered through the doorway. And then, from the shadows, a voice. Deep. Raspy. Familiar. Why did you do it? Andre's stomach twisted. What? The darkness shifted. A tall figure stepped forward. The man from the video. Andre scrambled back, heart hammering. The man's face was shadowed, unreadable, but his eyes, those empty black voids, locked onto Andre like they saw through him. Why did you do it? The man repeated. Andre's throat was dry. I didn't do anything. The man took another step. The air grew heavier. You took my life. Andre shook his head violently. No. I don't even know you. The man's expression twisted. Liar. Andre's laptop screen flickered back to life. A new video file opened. Trembling, Andre turned his head just enough to see it. And what he saw made his blood turn to ice. It was footage of him. But not from today. Not from this house. The screen showed Andre, wearing old clothes, in a different time, sitting in a car. The headlights illuminated a familiar street. The same street from the 1963 footage. Andre's heart stopped. The footage played out exactly as before. The car sped forward. And hit the man. Andre was the driver. His vision blurred. No. That's impossible. This had to be a trick, a glitch, a nightmare. But deep inside, a sickening dread took root. A whisper slithered through the air. History repeats itself. Andre turned back to the shadowed figure, but it was gone. And in its place, sitting calmly in the rocking chair, was Edith. Smiling. Andre's heart pounded in his chest as Edith's smile grew wider, more sinister. Her presence filled the room like a dark cloud, suffocating everything. The chair creaked as she rocked back and forth, slowly, deliberately. "Edith, what do you want from me?" Andre's voice shook, but he forced himself to stand, despite the gnawing fear crawling through his veins. Her eyes glimmered in the darkness, as if she could see right through him. "I want you to understand, Andre," she said, her voice too calm. "This isn't a mistake. This isn't a coincidence." Andre's mind raced. I didn't kill anyone. I don't even know what you're talking about. I've never seen that man before." Edith's smile faltered, then returned, colder than before. "You think you're innocent?" she asked, tilting her head. "You think you can escape what's been set in motion?" Before Andre could answer, the room flickered, the lights snapped on, then off again, just for a split second. When they returned, the rocking chair was empty. His breath caught in his throat. The room was silent now, still. No more movement. No creaking. Just the pounding of his own heart. Then, it happened. A loud crash. The sound of breaking glass. It came from the hallway. Andre's body went stiff, and his feet moved of their own accord. He couldn't stop himself, he had to know what was happening. He turned and stepped cautiously into the hallway, his feet padding softly across the floor. His breath was shallow, and every noise, every creak, felt like an echo in the silence. As he approached the source of the noise, his eyes widened. The mirror in the hallway was shattered. The fragments lay scattered across the floor like broken pieces of a shattered reality. But there was something else. Something he didn't notice at first. The reflection in the mirror, it wasn't his. The man from the video, the one he had run over, stood in the shattered reflection, staring at him with those empty black eyes. "You're next." Andre stumbled backward, heart racing. His reflection had moved. The man in the mirror smiled. And the reflection in the shattered glass reached out, as if trying to pull itself through. Andre turned and ran. He dashed back into the living room, but as he reached the doorway, he froze. Edith was standing there. Her eyes locked onto his, full of something ancient and unforgiving. "It's too late now." Andre felt the weight of her words settle deep in his chest. The house had shifted, like it was no longer his. The walls, the floor, everything felt as though it had been warped, like he was trapped in a nightmare. Suddenly, the rocking chair creaked again. He turned. And the man, the dead man, was sitting there, smiling. And in his hand, he held Andre's phone. The screen lit up. A new message. "You took my life. Now you'll take my place." The Wi-Fi network name flashed again, history repeats itself. And in the corner of the screen, the message changed. "Welcome to the end." Andre's world collapsed. Everything around him spun into blackness. The last thing he heard was Edith's voice, sweet and chilling. "Good night, Andre." The blackness swallowed him whole. For what felt like an eternity, Andre could feel nothing, no weight, no time, no reality. Just a void that stretched on and on. His thoughts were sluggish, disconnected, drifting in and out of his mind like a half-forgotten dream. And then... light. Not the soft glow of a lamp or the flickering of a screen. This was pure, blinding light, sharp and cold. It pierced through the darkness, forcing him to squint against the sudden onslaught. Andre tried to move, but he couldn't. His body was frozen, held in place by an invisible force. Panic surged through him. The light slowly dimmed, and when his vision cleared, he was no longer in his living room. He was back. Back in Edith's house. But it wasn't just the house. It was the house from the old photographs, the one from 1963. Everything was vintage, old-fashioned. The furniture was dusty, cobwebs hanging in corners, the air thick with the smell of mildew and time. The rocking chair sat in the corner of the room, still, waiting. And there, standing before him, was Edith. She looked the same as before, her eyes hollow and dark, her smile unnervingly wide. "Welcome back, Andre," she said in a low, almost sing-song voice. "It's time for you to understand." Andre tried to speak, but his mouth was dry, his throat tight. What is this? Where am I?" Edith simply tilted her head and pointed toward the rocking chair. "Sit. It's your turn." Without thinking, or being able to stop himself, Andre moved toward the chair. His body obeyed her commands, moving slowly, like a marionette. The weight of something ancient and powerful pressed down on him. He sat. And as he did, the walls around him seemed to shift, the room bending, as if it were coming alive. The air thickened and the shadows grew deeper, swirling in the corners like something watching him, waiting. From nowhere, a soft whisper filled the room. "You took it from me." Andre's heart raced. The voice was so close, but there was no one near him. The rocking chair creaked softly, almost like it was breathing. "It was supposed to be you," the voice continued, sending chills up his spine. "But now you'll understand. You'll become me." Suddenly, the light flickered again. The Wi-Fi router, sitting on a table across the room, blipped to life. Its lights blinked once, twice, then a new network name appeared on Andre's phone screen. "Behold your past." Andre's fingers moved without him willing it. He opened the network, the phone now glowing with eerie light. The Wi-Fi signal was strong, but it felt like a trap. Another message flashed on the screen. "It's time." Andre's chest tightened. Something in his gut told him to stop. But he couldn't. The house, Edith's house, was changing him. His phone began playing a new video. The camera angle was strange, distorted, like it was taken from a different point of view. But he recognized the place. It was the street. His street. And there, standing in front of his own house, was the man from the video. The one he had hit. But now, he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was Andre, younger, but the same. They were staring at each other, as if they were both looking into a mirror. And then the car came. The footage blurred, and the camera shook. The man was struck, hit by the car, dragged beneath its wheels. But Andre wasn't driving. He was in the passenger seat, waiting. Andre gasped. The next frame was clearer. He wasn't the passenger. He was the driver. He had driven the car that killed the man. The man he now sat across from, in the rocking chair. And then, the truth hit him like a wave. Edith had been watching this happen for years. She had been watching him. Watching them both. The truth was not just in the Wi-Fi, not just in the past, it was in himself. He was stuck in this cycle. The man he had killed had become him. And now, he was becoming the man who died. Edith had been waiting. She had lured him here, to this point, where the boundaries between time and space no longer existed. Where history wasn't just something that happened, it was something that was created, repeated, replayed again and again. Andre's phone flickered one last time. The network name had changed once more. His turn. And then, he heard the knock at the door.